What if I told you that Nickelodeon made a superhero action cartoon focused around mascots to sell children's shoes? And what if I told you it was actually really good? Zevo-3 came out on October 10th, 2010 and ran through with only one season, ending on May 7th, 2011, and it's been practically forgotten about ever since it came out. And it's not too surprising, it's a weird idea. Everyone knew these characters from the Skechers commercials, Cool Breeze, Z-Strap, and Elastica, who are mascots for different types of shoes with airflow, velcro, and elastic lace designs, designed by John Massey, who also credited for creating the series. To see these characters suddenly get a show of their own out of nowhere is definitely weird, and wouldn't be surprised if people thought what they remembered was just from the old ads. Also, it got screwed by the network unsurprisingly, with no reruns and no ads. One season, 26 episodes, with no other release, with the only footage being from old TV recordings. With this in mind, you would think the show was just a cheap promotion to sell some Skechers to kids and make the mascots cool. But it really wasn't. The people behind it took genuine effort to make it a really good and unique show. I mean, it's no masterpiece from what it does do with its premise and writing, it succeeds on making a genuinely well-written and interesting story. And again, for shoe mascots. It's not even an ad at all. If you had no idea the ads existed, you would think this was some weird original superhero show. The show's been forgotten by everyone, and honestly even me, but I want to talk about it and give it some attention. I'll get into the premise. Years ago, a city called Footville was owned by the chemical mogul Stanley K. Foote, who developed an insanely mutagenic material called the Zevo compound, which corrupts and mutates anything it touches. The experiment failed spectacularly, as it created a mutagenic explosion that mutated every single living thing in the city, turning it into a desolate and monstrous ruin which Stan turned to stone. Half of the city was developed by a powerful entrepreneur named Brett Ronson III, who hides much more than he seems, and turned it into New Eden City, and now tries to eradicate every hint of mutation and make it seem like a metropolis. But while exploring what is now called Stankville, three kids, Jason, Matt, and Ellie, reactivated the Zevo compound in Stanley's lab and got mutated themselves with different abilities, but also revived Stanley as an insane mutant now named Stankfoot. Seeing his city being destroyed and redeveloped, and his own love of mutation, he now tries to destroy it with his mutagenic creation, leading our trio to defend the city and uncover a lot, and I mean a lot, of conspiracy and lore. It's a really wild premise considering shoe mascots, but it feels like a fusion of Teen Titans and TMNT with a bit of X-Men. Also like those high school hero stories I talked about a bit in my Ruby Gilman video. Now it does seem like a standard superhero affair with a mutagenic twist, but this show was really dedicated to its mystery and plot. Like there was an active lore and story arc through most of it I found genuinely engaging. But I also need to go into the characters more.
Hey Mom, Dad, me and my teammates, we've had to make some pretty tough choices lately.
Jason is probably the main character. He's a cool and collected kid with a penchant for skateboarding, parkour, and metalwork, who was trying to be a loner before he met the others. As a superhero counterpart, Z-Strap, he has a free-form metallic body able to shape into metal constructs and projectiles for a lot of versatile attacks. Honestly, a really cool ability, and they did a lot with it. I don't know if he even had this ability in the commercials, and it was a great way to update it. His parents were in the military and went missing in action as he lived with his grandma on a barge. His grandma's actually pretty cool and knows a lot more about the Zevo conspiracy than she lets on.
That'll teach you to mess with my grandson, sucker!
His parents are shown to be mysteriously involved in the Zevo and New Eden conspiracy.
You and those cursed Jameses.
Jameses?
And because of it, Jason is the one who takes part in most of the active plot in solving the mysteries and villain schemes, and he will oftentimes go solo to the detriment of his family and friends. He has a real determination to him, trying to find out why his parents left and how he ties into the Zevo conspiracies, and apparently a destiny he has, but I'll get to that later. He's definitely the character who gets the most involved in the plot.
We can fight crime, monsters, aliens, supervillains!
Matt Martin is the geeky and wacky one, voiced by Dante Bosco. I guess he had no voicing fiery boys and decided to voice an ice boy instead. Dante plays him up like a younger Jake Long, but they're surprisingly less annoying.
Is that all you got, Huntsman? Cause I'm about to come over there and...
As Cool Breeze, he has powerful ice abilities that are pretty useful for freezing mutants solid and making constructs. He's also a super genius and is constantly inventing gadgets that usually don't work well, but it's also pivotal in plenty of episodes. but he also has a unique interest in mutants and the Zevo compound. He's technically the one who starts the plot by accidentally activating the Zevo compound and kickstarting the entire thing. He can also get a little annoying and immature since he's the youngest of the trio.
Now I know why tigers eat their young.
But thankfully he's endearing enough, and he's the one who helps unify the team and get him to action in the first place.
My brother has about as much experience with humor as he does with girls.
Ellie is a more sarcastic and cynical character, voiced by Kari Walgreen, which I know best as playing Charmcaster on Ben 10, which as a big Ben 10 fan is kinda distracting.
No, that device turned him into one of those cow things. She wanted to switch with Ben. That way she could get the Omnitrick.
She's Matt's older sister and often gets annoyed by his antics.
I hacked the government satellite archives.
Oh, great. That's gonna get us 20 to life in the pen.
He's a kind of cynical in nature and can be especially standoffish, but luckily not to the point of unlikability. He is shown to be very productive and ambitious, being a gymnast, trying to obtain her academic standard, and trying to cram as much into her life as possible, which is a big insecurity of her as she fears failing and being mocked. And because of that, she's the most opposed to being a superhero.
Have you seen my schedule? I don't have time for this. I have a life. I have algebra!
As Elastica, she has elastic and superpowered hair that can stretch and form unique shapes and constructs. It sounds kind of lame, but they do a lot with it. She's probably the physically strongest member, as her hair is pretty powerful. She does fall into the usual teenage girl trope, but she's like the only one who really does. It's not done terribly and it's barely a focus. Some of her friends may get a big role in an episode, but it's not really the entire point of it. One of them is even a popular influencer girl, before that became a part of literally every show that's out now. They also write them as if she and Jason have a crush on each other, but it's not really that big. Like, don't expect a whole will they won't they episode, it's just a lot of tension. How does no one recognize her as Elastica? They look identical. Clark Kent syndrome, whatever.
Sometimes my life really stinks, and not in a good way.
Stankfoot's the main villain, and he's a pretty entertaining one. He's also lifted from the commercials and Blocked Up too, but there are much more shades in how the heroes are. He's voiced incredibly by Mark Hamill, and he's great as always.
So I fear ours was a life never meant to be. You'll just have to die.
Eileen, come on, he's Joker as a mad scientist, it's perfect. He's also entertainingly eccentric and wild, while also very devious and psychotic. He's so unapologetically gross too. The entire show has that entire feel to it, it's so perfect. So much of his plots are born out of sheer pettiness or madness, but he's also a bit interesting with the lore of his family as they were the heirs to the city, and he believes it's his birthright, as much as Ronson has been trying to get a stranglehold on it and erase his history. Stankfoot and Ronson hate each other practically as much as they hate the heroes. He's not much of a physical fighter, preferring to create legions made from mutated animals and people, where he seems to have innate control over them. But he also has a mutagenic and very corrosive touch, so he's plenty dangerous on his own, not to mention with all his minions and plans.
Something's wrong. None of this should be happening.
Ronson is a really interesting villain as the literal two-faced mayor of New Eden City. He seeks to have a totalitarian grip on the city and people, and has a weird hold on the old generation that never gets explained. He's constantly shown to lie to the people to keep his power, despite the mutant rampages, and he has seemingly everything bugged and abuses the power of the news to his advantage. He's actually a mutant in disguise, and seeks to utterly destroy them all and the rest of Stankville to keep his perfect utopia. It's as if he's taking out his anger at his own condition to everything else like it, and to maintain a level of control. He will lie, hurt, and even kill innocents to make sure of it.
We'll just have to kill them. They seem too much.
This type of villain would be one note usually, but him being a mutant himself and his involvement in the conspiracies keeps it interesting. It's constantly hinted about other conspiracies he's done, like Operation Z and the founding of the city, not to mention his political and also mental stranglehold he's shown to have on New Eden. His voice makes every scene he's in feel chilling.
You're sick!
I'm a visionary leader. That's where you fail.
I really gotta give it to Kevin Michael Richardson. He plays both sides to him, but I'm flabbergasted how he's able to change his voice from high, cheery, and friendly to cold and cunning like he's famous for.
Any monsters you see in our town have been constructed purely for your entertainment. A real leader focuses on the job at hand.
He's a scary representation of political power gone too far, and he will do anything to maintain his power and utopia. Blacktop is Stankfoot's main minion, being his first creation from his footprints in concrete. He's a powerful, amorphous brute that's loyal to his master, and served as the first true threat to its heroes. I do hate the weird CG smoke effect he has, it's insanely distracting. Though he's the most reoccurring minion, he's clearly not much of an actual character.
Now, bow down before me.
Dark Materia was another creation by Stankfoot meant to be his companion.
Hey, you know something? You're kind of fine. In a ghostly ghoul kind of way.
But she just freaking hates him and would love to kill him if Blacktop didn't get in the way. She still weirdly lives with him, which is kind of hilarious with how much she completely hates him and he doesn't care. She considers herself a god and everything below her as puny mortals, and she has vague powers of dark matter. It does lead to one of my favorite lines in the series.
What answers? I want to kill him, she wants to kill me, we all want to kill you.
I kind of wonder if she was planned to be more important, since she definitely builds herself up as the most powerful being in the world. It has been shown that she's made up of Zevo energy and has some extreme power over all Zevo life forms. There's definitely some validity in her claims. Some of her feats borderline on actual magic, though her physical body seems weak, as Blacktop is easily able to overpower her by surprise, as well as our heroes.
You break my heart. If you had remembered to give me one. Too bad.
Now, for the show itself, it does follow the usual teen superhero type stories, things like struggling with powers, time management and relationship with their hero identities, usual immune attacks, hiding your anime addiction,
You got a secret anime stash!
getting really high.
Hey, you saved me, E. I was falling.
Jason, you're a superhero. You can fly, remember?
Get out of here, for real.
But it slowly does introduce lore and mysteries of the characters as things get a lot deeper than they seem. It seems generic at first, but it starts to pick up steam like a lot of these shows who get more ambitious do. Honestly, it's more interesting and serialized than most other shows of these types that are out at the same time, like Danny Phantom and kinda Ben 10 Alien Force. Also, I gotta say no with the complete lack of action in hero shows today. It's so nice to rewatch one again. I really miss this type of series. This show is not afraid to go dark, and I mean it gets dark. Not only is there existential body horror with the mutant concept, but does not shy away from the victims. One of the darkest plots involves a group of mutants in a subway station, where they make it very clear that during the initial Zevo blast of Stankville, people were trapped in the subway, with the Zevo compound mutating them, infusing them with the metal of the cars in the station, turning to practically mindless biomechanical monsters named the Molochs. One mechanic was able to seal himself in the maintenance closet where he retained some of his sanity, as he was spared from the brunt of the mutagen, and now leads the rest of the subway mutants like a tribal chief, where they form a cult convinced that their mutation was the result of retribution from the mutational gods, and kidnap cool breeds as a sacrifice to ensure that such a catastrophe could never happen again. And they do remind you, these all used to be innocent people.
You must have all been here when the chemical accident happened 20 years ago. You couldn't get out, so you were mutated in the subway. But you're so young.
I want to remind you all that this is a show based off of shoe ads. Another notable episode is Mutant Hotel, which follows a family called the Mangelsons who were also mutated to disgusting forms, except their daughter Carolyn, who became this anime girl with healing powers, but they still retained all their sanity and still love each other very much. They are pretty much forced to live in the remains of a hotel as their grandma was mutated to the hotel floor and they couldn't abandon her. And Ronson, his extermination of all mutants and destruction of Stankville, is hell-bent on destroying them in the building, where our heroes have to help out. Again, the fact that the sweet family was horribly mutated and hunted and can never join society again is really messed up.
Hi, mister. Why would you do this to us?
Because you're freaks, my dear. All of you.
This guy, who looks like a mole rat fused with Joe Biden, got lucky. He somehow got out of this and only got brutally injured. Not like Ronson's assistant, who showed up in multiple episodes and got mutated directly by Stankfoot and got turned to this horrific mutant permanently and became another one of his minions.
A new creation! I've been kind of into arthropods lately.
Like, he's effectively dead and spends the rest of his life as a screeching bug monstrosity. Hell, he's probably worse off than dead. And there was no build up to this just happened. It's funny how I'm playing Fallout for the first time while making it, since some of these mutants wouldn't be out of place to see in that game. They really try to make these mutants so strange and monstrous, not like some sort of basic modification of normal things. It's really nice to see. The mutant angle is a really unique and great approach to the show that seems so weird with the original commercials as a premise, but they do so much with it, it's awesome. I even like how the team doesn't really villainize them and just try to defeat them and get them back to Stankville where they can't hurt anyone. Well, mostly. They still pity a lot of the mutants. This show really has its own world and vibe. It keeps a mostly dark tone in nearly all the episodes, even the more fillery ones that should have a lighter tone. It has surprisingly good atmosphere at times by the visuals and soundtrack. It's not nearly as goofy as you think it would be. it takes its plots rather seriously. At around halfway through the series, it really starts to get into its storytelling, with plenty of the Zevo conspiracy and progressing to the plot of the Zevo trio trying to figure out the history of the Zevo compound, and the links of Ronson's control over the town. It really doesn't give a lot away. It's a seriously compelling mystery. Like, there's dozens of bits and pieces of information you have to try your best to piece together, and plenty of other characters hint that there's much more to them than they seem to be. Again, it's not just an ad. If they just want to sell shoes, they could make the show super marketable and fun, make the kids get attached to the mascots and buy shoes on them. But no, there was a ton of effort. Serialization wasn't as common at the time as it is now, and was considered a risky move, as it would be hard to rerun and air, and this show did it when it really didn't have to. It's very heavy on the serialization in later episodes. New character lore and new dynamics between their heroes and villains are shown quite a few times, and expands on the world building of the Zevo compound. We get a lot of new episodes focused on the new and interesting developments in the world and characters. One interesting episode is that they introduce other human superpowered mutants, but they frustratingly were never explained in the show's run.
The less you know about us, the better.
Like, there was a big plot that never got to be resolved. It was just disappointing. Another episode had their mutations accelerate to more unstable and dangerous forms, with Cool Breeze turning Cudes, Z-Strap becoming liquid metal, and Elastica having wild and sensory hair. Okay, that one's kinda disappointing. Whoa, what if like her body was growing to become just as elastic and growing tendril-like as well through her limbs, so she lives up more to her name? That would be awesome. Stankfoot starts developing anti-Zevo compound, which can demutate and destroy mutated creatures, and Harvin's Zevo Stone that can give a mutant glimpses of a possible future. I have a feeling plenty of people dropped in its more episodic beginning and judged it based on that, which really isn't fair. So much of what makes the show unique and interesting happened later on, where it's much more serious than the show about shoe mascots should be. It's genuinely engaging with it. It even foreshadows glimpses of a future mutant apocalypse that would destroy the entire city. Tensions continually rise as the story progresses, and it doesn't feel like there's just nothing going on. But it's also very fun too. It's a great mix. It can be genuinely funny at times.
Oh, hello.
You can really see the friend group getting much closer together by their experiences where they didn't even know or even really like each other.
Seriously, why are you still here?
But now they pretty much trust each other with their lives. It was done at a time where serialization wasn't quite as dominant as it was now, especially in minor details like the show had that made the plot much more interesting. We get a lot of developments, namely the mysterious Operation Z, which has been constantly alluded to as a dark secret involving the characters and other superpowered mutants that exist potentially involved in it. Characters have a lot more secrets to them whether they know it or not. Tensions keep rising and plots become more and more twisted. There was clearly a lot of love for this show behind the scenes. I would love to see how this was developed and the details of the plots, but unfortunately, one season is all we got. The plot just kept building and building more as it went along, and the final episode approaches. When I was first watching, I was really terrified as I got genuinely engaged in the mystery and lore of the show, and I was afraid it would end on some huge cliffhanger that would never be resolved. But does it? Well, I have to talk about it. But of course, spoilers. If you want to watch the show on your own, skip to this time or wrap everything up. And please do, I did not go on this long just to tell you not to do it. Alright then? Then this is Mutation Termination. Ronson has seemingly developed his own anti-Zevo compound and uses dark materia as the main conduit. With her connection to the Zevo, she could demutate every mutant in the city. When testing the anti-Zevo wave, it got the attention of Zevo-3, who meet up and try to help with all their mutant friends like Bug, Bobby, and the Manglesons to get them to safety and stop Ronson before they can kill them all. Also, no, but they do kind of ignore continuity as they never bring up Grandma Mangleson, which was the entire point of the episode, was that they couldn't leave because she was stuck there. I don't know, maybe she died between episodes. Stankfoot is also made aware of this and takes a supply of anti-Zevo, which he previously developed seemingly to kill Zevo-3 to try and destroy dark materia before she can ruin everything. Oh yeah, also Blacktop died in an earlier episode by being demutated by it, kind of unceremoniously.
He was just a baby! A big, violent, borderline homicidal baby!
But it doesn't take long for dark materia to betray Ronson and bring his city down by reversing the effects and creating a massive Zevo influx that mutates the entire city, causing the foreshadowed mutant apocalypse. Our heroes try and help out, but it's just way too much and they have to retreat and take everyone they can to the barge. Jason, though, gets knocked out and falls into the ocean, but is saved by his parents, who are still alive, who said that Jason still has a destiny to fulfill, but he's not certain if it was real. Stankfoot confronts Dark Materia and seemingly is able to demutate her for good, effectively killing her, before now trying to finish off Ronson.
We could have been so glorious together. But what you gonna do?
Grandma thinks the city is done for, and their best course of action is to fight their way out. And seemingly, they're gonna get the military to destroy the city.
No. No! We fought too hard!
But Jason thinks of a way to win. They get Stankfoot's supply of anti-Zevo and get to Mollicom, a toy robot turned giant by Jason's Zevo-infused blood, to spray anti-Zevo all through the city, getting the mutant friends to safety since they aren't sure if it will demutate or kill them. Meanwhile, Stankfoot and Ronson have their final confrontation, but Stankfoot ends up being demutated himself, still swearing revenge as he dissolves.
What an appropriate ending for you. In the sewer.
But Mollicom sprays Ronson too, which doesn't actually kill him, but gets rid of his mutation. The city is saved and quickly rebuilt with things seemingly back to normal. Everything feels fine, but Jason says that he's not sure what destiny he has, but he's sure his friends will be involved, and once trouble comes, they'll go and answer the call. But unfortunately, that call never came. I'm glad at least that the show didn't end on a huge cliffhanger, and most central conflicts got resolved one way or another, but there's still a lot left unanswered, and things are clearly not completely done. Without his mutation, Ronson is free to move with his plan and do whatever heinous actually has planned.
Have the perfect city I have always dreamed of. Nothing can stop me now.
And the hero's mutant friend still never got demutated. And of course, that's not bringing up what the finale introduces, with Jason's parents being alive, his apparent destiny ahead of him, plus all the other conspiracy and mystery that never got resolved. It's just so infuriating as a fan to get it genuinely engaged in the plot and lore and pretty much never get an answer. So you know what? I'm gonna do my best to try and put everything together from what bits and pieces I can get from the series. The Zevo compound was developed by the US government. Likely, they have researched the potential of the completed mutagenic compound and saw its potential. The project was partially funded and oversaw by Brett Ronson, and sought chemical expertise and resources of the Foot family to get them involved in the project, namely Stanley K. Foot. It's possible through this collaboration, the government helped to make Footville, but it's uncertain. Stanley jumped at the idea and was obsessed with finding the secrets of the mysterious chemical compound, but even he wasn't aware of the true scope. The government established Operation Z, a plan to perfect the Zevo compound and utilize it to make a new legion of unstoppable superhero soldiers.
I've created my first super soldier without even trying!
To do so, the government did horrific experiments on plants, animals, and even people. However, this only resulted in 3 successful superpowered humans. Even Zevo-3, being as perfected as they were, still constantly struggle with their powers and have it mutating, so even they're not immune to the problems of the Zevo mutation. It's likely that the Jameses tried to step in and stop the project before it went out of control and cause more harm and potentially start a mutant apocalypse. Potentially, they tried to confront Stanley to stop his experiments, but Stanley would not be stopped, and he tried to have them killed, but the Jameses faked their deaths to avoid detection from the government or Stanley at the cost of never seeing their son Jason again, but made connections in time to still survey it and make sure he's safe.
Why did both of you have to go?
Ronson potentially also saw Stanley as a liability and wanted to kill him, and potentially sabotage his final experiment, as Stanley wanted to perfect the Zevo compound itself in his final experiment before anyone could stop him and cement his place in history.
Or the government, or anyone else to stop me!
But due to this sabotage, the experiment failed and created a devastating Zevo wave, much worse than anyone or Ronson could imagine, destroying Footville and turning it into Stankville. This caused the government to see it as a complete failure and wiped out all evidence of it. Ronson would then develop New Eden City, not only for his own power, but to try and erase every trace of the Zevo experiment, erasing history while also propping himself up. He reutilizes the Operation Z laboratory in order to instead test for an anti-mutagen that would cure him. Ronson plans to use hypnotic devices on all his employees and retain utter ruling in order to do so, and plans to subject the next generation to the same control to ensure his power and life stay.
Supporting whining! As I look at these whiny children here tonight,
especially once his mutant priority is removed. However, Stanley's experiment was not a total failure, as the 8th Zevo in his compound was able to reach the perfected state, able to turn our 3 heroes into superpowered mutants. Z-Strap is fated to finally be able to cure all the Zevo mutations once and for all, and potentially save the world, possibly through the future visions of the Zevo Stone. But we'll never know if this is all true. It always sucks to see a story uncompleted, and it's especially bad since there's no way this show is ever coming back. The show is made with shoe mascots that are no longer relevant, aired on Nicktoons, which is infamous for canceling shows and being forgotten, and it's been completely forgotten by pretty much everyone, and it got in trouble with the FCC without handling its characters. Like, the best chance this series has is for me to become the CEO of Nickelodeon and license the characters back from Skechers. And yeah, they are characters originating in ads meant to sell shoes, but come on, there's no way I talked about all of this and it still feels like an ad.
Ronson's department store? Ronson's Museum of Art? Ronson's Burgers?
I didn't even mention shoes once when I was covering the actual content. It's not just an ad, it's so much more. It has such great lore, writing, world building, designs. It's not just a Skechers ad. I would absolutely love for this to get any sort of continuation through a TV revival, comic, or even just being told what happens. But it's not going to get that chance. It's hard to say goodbye to a show I genuinely enjoyed and got engaged in.
Zevo-3 is over, man. Let it go.
It doesn't deserve to be forgotten. Especially now that the ads are long in the past, maybe people can take it better at face value. I really recommend this show, either as a nostalgic trip down a long forgotten show of your childhood, or to see something you've never seen before. You might find a show you'll really love, and get attached to and never know how it ends. But hey, if there's really a demand for it, maybe it will have a chance of coming back. At least maybe something? Anything? Put them in Nick All-Stars Brawl, do they count? But until something changes, it looks like these heroes will never get the call to action again. Goodbye, Zevo-3.
What just happened?
'Cause we're superheroes!
Are you crazy?
I'm the monster in your closet, the thing under your bed. I'm New Eden City's own boogeyman. With all this Zevo compound at my disposal, the war has just begun.
I am a god. You are but a worm to be crushed.
This isn't anything I wanted. I've wished it away so many times, and now I just ask for it back. But we've made our choice. I guess there are just some things we have to do.
Operation Z. We all want a lot of things, but sometimes we don't get them. Operation Z is classified and more dangerous than anything you can possibly imagine.
You think that's gonna make me miss them any less? What am I doing?
This is my city. Our patience with those children is at an end.
We're helping the city.
I am this city's protection.
You took my home, my family fortune, my city, my life. But it's still not enough.
Hey! You're human mutants like us! Cool!
If I'm right, you can sense the energy flowing through the city like the Zevo lifeblood that flows through you. Reach out to it.
The only thing that's clear to me is I can't trust anything I ever thought I knew.
Hey, so I was thinking of future video ideas, and this felt like a really good one. No one really talks about it at all, and I'd love to give it some more attention, as I genuinely loved it and felt it deserved a bigger fan base. Hopefully, y'all will at least check it out. I like to talk about underrated things that deserve more love and attention, so if you have one, leave it in the comments. I might cover it myself. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.